Hi, welcome to Around the Bend with Soki. I'm Mike.
And I'm Ramona. And we travel with our two cats, Maddie and Gracie.
And we have a 2021 Alliance Paradigm 385 FL, which is Soki. So this summer we've been spending our time in northwestern Washington State, and in this episode we're making a day trip to the Museum of Flight. This is a trip we've really been looking forward to, not only so we could get to see the museum, but also it was a good chance to spend time with our grandson Tristan. The Museum of Flight is the largest independent non-profit air and space museum in the world. It's located at the southern end of Kings County International Airport in the city of Tukwila, immediately south of Seattle. We knew we were getting close when we saw a great big sign for Boeing on the left side of the road and the tail of a whole bunch of aircraft. And then we saw the F-18. It's very easy to get distracted as you're working your way to this museum. There's aircraft all over, including the one parked over here in the corner. There's plenty of free parking. We had no trouble finding a place to park, as you'll see. The museum is open daily from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And yes, that is a Connie, a constellation, right there at the front door. Little bump out right there in front of us is actually a control tower mock-up that you can go in and take a view of and kind of play around with the communications and stuff. Museum of Flight was established in 1965. It is fully accredited by the American Alliance of Museums, with over 175 aircraft and spacecraft, including this beautiful Lockheed Constellation. There's tens of thousands of artifacts, millions of rare photographs, dozens of exhibits and experiences in a world-class library. The museum and its people bring mankind's incredible history of flight to life. The museum is built on the original site of the Boeing factory. This model is a diorama of what the aircraft factory looked like. The red barn in the background, you see it through the windows, is actually what the original building looked like, and we'll see that again later. Our grandson Tristan, my wife Ramona, and I were just beginning a long day of discovery. The museum has a number of docents located throughout the facility, and they're very helpful, giving you an idea where to look, which way to go, when tours are going to happen, that sort of thing. This is a map of the Great Gallery. Just too much information, but more than 50 historic aircraft tracing the first century of human flight, including the world's only remaining M21 Blackbird. Gives you a chance to learn how early rocketry and space travel in the Apollo exhibit, and just a tremendous amount. It's just overwhelming when you first walk into this. There's two full floors. You look up, you look down, you see aircraft everywhere. It's just really amazing. And appropriately, you start out with the Wright brothers right in front of you, some of their equipment that they use to master flight. And then you have this Boeing Model 40B used for airmail and was actually the first commercial plane with somebody riding in a little door right behind the engine. Not exactly something I'd want to pay for. Like I said, everywhere you look, you just see more aircraft. You look up, there's a Douglas DC-3 right in the middle of the picture. You look down and you see a Lockheed Blackbird M21 and then a D-21B drone. So it's just an amazing. There's a Taylor Aero car, a Stinson Model O, a Lockheed Electra. It's just overwhelming, the number of aircraft and the time span that they're covering. For many years, this Blackbird was super secret, but now we're able to walk right underneath it, take a look in the engines, see everything there is to see, and then be surrounded by so many other aircraft. This section even had simulators. There was one on the far side. It was a full cockpit that kids could climb into. They could get to experience flight simulations, what it was like to sit in a cockpit. It was just interesting to watch Tristan's head on a swivel with all the different things to look at. So this is the Great Gallery, as they call it. It's a 3 million cubic foot, 6-story glass and steel exhibit that currently contains 39 full-size historic aircraft, including the 9-ton DC-3 hanging from the space frame ceiling in a flight attitude. Dramatically lit at night, the gallery is a stunning architectural achievement full of aircraft that trace the history of the first century of flight. One of the things you'll notice as we go through this museum, in all sections, it traced some of the history of aviation. And of course, aviation was used in different wars. So it showed both sides of the activity. So in this case, there's a Phantom, but there's also a MiG right next door. So it was all the aircraft that were involved in the different campaigns. And then when you think you've seen it all, you turn around and there's a Taylor Aero Car 3. And you get to look at it up close and personal, an actual flying car. Museum strove to make it personal, showing the uniforms, the locations, the maps, how these aircraft were used, and what the training was like, what it was like for the individuals that were actually operating the aircraft. There were so many exhibits here, from ejection seats to engines to uniforms, the whole aircraft, just to keep everybody's attention. And the museum does a nice job of trying to show how these aircraft operated, how they're actually used. And in this case, here's a really nice diorama of the USS Nimitz and how the planes would be used on the deck. It's hard to comprehend when you look at some of these aircraft that they were actually used on a ship. This way it laid it out so you could actually see and describe in detail how these planes operate. As we looked at these MiGs and a couple of aircraft nearby, there was information explaining that this was the last time that guns were really used in air-to-air combat. After that point, it was missiles, and really didn't always see the other opponent. As we came into this corner of the museum, there was a really nice display with a Lockheed Model 10E Electra that was flown or is the model that Amelia Earhart flew in. It's a really nice description of how she flew it, where she flew it, and where they think she was lost. Off the Great Gallery was the Apollo exhibit that covered the development of the space program and rocketry, and then had a lot of the equipment that led up to the Apollo program, including giant F-1 rockets, the lunar lander, and the command module, and some of the satellites that had been put up into space. The next section of the museum is the Personal Courage Gallery. It's a two-story gallery that highlights stories of courage, dedication, heroism, and the triumph of human spirits of those involved in fighter aviation in World War I and World War II. Through state-of-the-art exhibits, interactive experiences, and flight simulations, it really demonstrates a lot of this, including live dioramas like you're going to listen to.
No! You're founded for sure! You're Robin Queens, aren't you? Me? Never. Somewhat well-adjusted chaps. You, at a desk.
They took great pains to demonstrate what life would have been like when the people were not flying the airplanes and they were just kind of filling time before the next mission. Personal Courage Wing exhibits tells stories of not only those who flew, but the people who designed, built, and maintained these amazing aircraft. Unlike the museum's Great Gallery, the Personal Courage Wing is essentially a black box. It's designed to provide necessary protection from harmful ultraviolet light that can damage fragile items like documents, uniforms, and the fabric airplanes. Located just north of the Red Barn, this 88,000 square foot addition opened in June 6, 2004, the 60th anniversary of D-Day, and showcases 28 immaculately restored World War I and World War II fighter planes across these two galleries, including one of the finest collection of historic fighters found anywhere in the world. On these two floors, you'll see top-width triplanes, Newport 24Bs, Newport 28C1s, Curtiss Jennies, Fads, Spads, and then on the other floor you get Messerschmitts, Submarine Spitfire, a Curtiss P-40, Lockheed P-38, North American P-51 Mustangs, and General Motors FM2 Wildcats. To reach the next section of the museum, you have to go over the sky bridge to the other side of the road to visit the Space Gallery. It includes multi-sensory exhibits that emphasize stories from visionaries, designers, pilots, and the crews of the space shuttle, and are designed to educate and inspire all ages. There's a lot of interesting things for kids to do. Museum of Flight designed the 15,500 square foot Space Gallery, which opened in 2011 and now houses NASA's Space Shuttle full fuselage trainer. There's a lot of hands-on things for kids to do. You can even go into the payload bay of the Space Shuttle to see what it actually looks like, get a feel for it, and realize that it can actually hold a full-size school bus. The next section of the museum is right next to the Space Gallery. It's called the Aviation Pavilion. It's a covered outside gallery with 19 rare and unique commercial military airplanes. The 3-acre display focuses on the dramatic development of large aircraft and commercial airliners from the 1930s to present. For the first time, the museum's unrivaled collection of large commercial aircraft can be seen in one place. The airliner exhibit includes the world's only presentation of the first Boeing 727, 737, 747, and the first jet, Air Force One, the extremely rare Boeing 247D, and a Douglas DC-2 from the 30s. The exhibit includes the only Concorde on the West Coast and the new Boeing 787 Dreamliner. The exhibit also includes 3 big bombers, World War II's B-17F Flying Fortress, a B-29 Super Fortress, and the Cold War's B-47 Stratojet. It gives the opportunity to take a tour of a real Air Force One, the Boeing 707 from the Kennedy, Johnson, and Nixon eras, plus the history that goes with it. Taking a tour of this aircraft is like walking back in time, taking a look at avionics as they used to be. And as you walk through, you can see modern computer technology, a mainframe computer, and an IBM laptop. When was the last time you saw one of those? How about a rotary dial telephone? When was the last time you used one of those? Quite the far cry from the current Air Force One. It is pretty sobering when you start to think about the history that this airplane was involved in over the years, transporting President Kennedy, Nixon, Johnson, Kissinger, some of the places that they flew, and some of the things they accomplished while they did it. This was a well-traveled airplane. Even had 787 Dreamliner in here, and you got the chance to look close up at the incredible engines that now power these aircraft. They're more fans than they are jet engines to some extent. That's why they're so economical and powerful. You have a 747 that's decked out in its transport mode. It doesn't have seats, but the tracking and what they use for locking down the transport of pallets and equipment. This was a testing aircraft, apparently used for stress testing and a number of other things that the aircraft could do in this configuration. Really gives you an idea of the volume inside this airframe. Scattered in and among all these behemoths of aircraft, we find the Chinook, we find Tomcat F-14, there's a Grumman F-9F Cougar, A-4F Skyhawk, a Harrier, an Intruder, there's a EA-6 Prowler, just a host of a number of different smaller aircraft. Adjacent to the Aviation Pavilion is the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Park. The centerpiece is a restored B-52G Stratofortress that flew during Operation Linebacker 2. The last section we toured is the Red Barn, as I mentioned earlier. William E. Boeing's Red Barn, with its warm wooden tones and historic exhibits, reflects the romantic early days of aviation. This statue right outside the front door seemed appropriate as the boy was standing there dreaming of flight. Thanks for joining us, and don't forget to like and subscribe.